we'll get started. Thank you very much for coming to this workshop session. So it means it's going to be super interactive. And I'm going to hand over to Peter to run the session. Over to you.
Right, thank you. Yeah, just to point out, it does say turn on, so feel free to turn on, and it's kind of turning everything off. But it's definitely on, and there will be some opportunities for you to get involved as much as possible. So this is Learning at City. I'm going to be talking a bit about technology and physical learning environments. And as a part of a secondment I've been doing. I thought, first of all, although there are a few familiar faces here, I thought I'd just briefly say who I am and what I'm doing here. My name's Peter Kogan. I'm a work-based learning advisor in the Professional Liaison Unit, and we work within the School of Informatics and SEMS, doing exciting things around work-based learning, placement, that wasn't a joke, internships, teaching, all sorts of professional development activities. And if you're interested in seeing our blog, it's down there. Since last July, I've been doing a Learning Development Associates secondment with the LDC, which is a kind of one day a week thing. And I've been looking within the LDC's Learning Spacings project at technology that's used in physical learning environments. I'm going to come along to some definitions. And I just thought I'd just very quickly find out about you, because although it did appear in the abstract as the surprise, I'm actually going to try and gather some data from you. So would you mind putting your hands in your, you know the rest of that, but if you teach, okay, gosh, that's quite a lot of you. 1, 2, this is going to be kind of slightly unscientific, but I'd say, how many hands do you think there's? 15? Yeah, happy with 15? Yeah. Okay, great. How many of you have a mobile phone with you? All right, let's do it the other way. Who doesn't have a mobile phone? 1. Right, okay, so that's minus 1. How many of you are there? Somebody guess for me.
There's about 21.
21? Okay, great. Yeah, I think it might be a couple more than that. How many of you have got something, an internet-enabled device that isn't a mobile phone? Okay, so that's great. That's about 50. I should have been clicking these things. Yeah. How many of you are willing to use IED? I do apologise. It occurred to me later on that had some other meaning. But how many of you are happy to use your internet-enabled device? So just about all of you. Most of you. Great. And how many of you are refusing to put your hand up? Okay, I think I've got the number there. Right, brilliant. Great. So the overview of what I hope to do here is talk a bit about the project, its aims, the data that I've gathered so far, and some conclusions so far. Disclaimer at the beginning, the project's not finished. I haven't concluded everything. So this is kind of some interim thoughts. But I'm also very interested in your opinions and whatever information or data you can provide to it, and any conclusions that you might want to have. So that's the plan, but I'm actually not going to do it in that order. I'm going to mix it up a bit. Find out some of your opinions and talk about things I've been doing, data gathering activities, etc. And a bit more of your opinions, a bit more of my project. So it's going to be a bit more general. It's not going to be split into 2 sections. First of all, some definitions. Technology. For the purpose of my project, I basically decided that technology is anything in a physical teaching environment that isn't furniture. So from a projector to an overhead projector or visualizer, depending what you call them, to something like even a whiteboard, something that's kind of used for teaching. So that's my broad definition of what technology is in this context. And a physical learning environment is a classroom, a lecture hall, a seminar room, whatever you like to call it, a place with no windows and a lot of heat. And a teacher is someone who teaches, because within certain bits of education, people prefer to be called something rather than another, but if you teach in the context of the project, you're a teacher. The aims of my projects are basically to see what technology is used, why it's used, and what impact it's been having on teaching and learning. So there's quite a lot going on there. And how I've been trying to do that is by creating a few mini case studies, talking to students, teachers, watching these observations, etc., and seeing what kind of things people have been using, asking them why they're using it, and asking how these have impacted on both students' learning and teaching. I've done various different things. The first thing we did, which was actually one of the other learning development associates, I think it was her idea, organised a kind of a walk-on-by type activity in the main corridor in the university, where we grabbed anyone who would stop in exchange for a sweet if they wanted one, and asked them opinions on certain things. So I produced some posters with a list. It's a bit difficult to see on this. I was actually going to bring one in, but I haven't. A list of different technologies down one side, and a list of different kind of impacts and possible ways that they have affected students' learning on the other side, and asked people to join them up. And there were some blank circles too, where they could add different things, different technologies, and add different impacts. So, for example, here it says making learning more interactive, and people could say that using Prezi or Moodle was doing that, and all sorts of things, as well as being able to share some ideas. So it was a way of kind of getting an idea of just what students were thinking. I had some ideas about the kind of questions I wanted to ask later on, but I actually kind of thought it would be useful right at the beginning to see if there's anything I was completely missing. I also asked very nice people in timetabling to give me a 13,000 row Excel spreadsheet of every bit of teaching that happens in the university, with a few parameters. Then after they'd very kindly given it to me, I realised there were a couple of other things I wanted. I said, any chance you could add that in? No. But anyway, the reason was I wanted to kind of get a random sample of lecturers of kind of teaching situations to approach, and I wanted to be able to see people who teach a certain number of classes, so more than one, but perhaps less than 10, across the university, and kind of within all the the different schools within the university. So it was a way of kind of identifying who was doing what before approaching them. I then asked quite a lot of people, would you be interested in taking part in my project involving me observing an hour of one of your classes, doing a follow-up interview with you, then surveying the students in those classes, and then trying to arrange some interviews with those students. So kind of seeing what happens, asking the teacher what was going on, why they were doing certain things, finding out from the students what they thought about what was going on within that particular learning environment, and in general, and then kind of drilling down further with the students by asking them questions. So I, at the observations, these are obviously typed up versions, but I kind of filled out charts of what the teacher was doing with the kind of plan of the class, etc., and made a timeline within the hour that I observed of what technology was being used at what points, to get an idea of how much things were being used and how many things were being used, and just other kind of incidents, things happen, which was very interesting. I then did a follow-up interview with the lecturers and kind of asked them specific things about, as I mentioned, what they were doing, why they were doing it, and how it all fitted together. I did an online survey for the students to get their impressions of the technology that was being used in that particular class, as well as in general. And then the next stage was to kind of, for anyone who was interested of those students, to kind of do interviews with them, just to kind of develop further themes. Right, I'd like to, that's enough. I feel as I've done a lot of talking. I have done a lot of talking. So could you tell me which 3 technologies you think are used most in physical learning environments at City, bearing in mind the definition of technology that I've offered you, or enforced?
PowerPoint.
Sorry?
PowerPoint.
Pod, do you say?
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, sorry. PowerPoint, yeah, okay. There's a list I prepared earlier. PowerPoint, anyone else? Prezi? Whiteboard? Visualizer? Videos? When you say video, do you mean online or DVDs or?
Yeah, a mixture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Moodle? Okay. I think I've got all of those save a bit of time so far. So I just threw in a couple more: PowerPoint, whiteboard, DVDs, Moodle, overhead projector. Some people can. What? Visualizer. What? There are two different types of people in the world: OH people, visualizers. One of these, perhaps with or without acetate. Personal response systems. I did write PSR by mistake, so I put clickers out. Yeah. Don't know why. Internet, audio. Anything else you'd like to add to this list in terms of things that are used as a, or is it? Does this cover everything? Have I missed anything? No. Okay. If you've got 3 votes, how many of you think PowerPoint is the most used? Okay, that's most of you. I'd say 15. Okay. Whiteboard most used? No? Or as one of your 3 votes? Because you've got 3 votes? Yeah, okay, that's 4. DVD? No? Moodle? Okay. Right, slowly, it's got a bad connection, but it comes like 12. Overhead projector or visualizer? Okay. Clickers? I'm risking saying that again. Interesting, okay. Internet. So for something that isn't any of the above, obviously. Yeah, okay, that was quite a lot. Audio file. Oh, right. So.
What do you mean by audio? Is that talking? Or
No, I meant actually kind of like an audio file, so yeah. Something from the radio, sort of MP3 or something.
No video.
Video, okay. Yeah, I mean, via the internet or a YouTube video type thing. I'm not sure if some people include that. Okay, video. Does anyone think that? Yeah. Okay, maybe I should have made that a bit clearer. So, if your vote for the internet was for video, how many of you would now say video? So ignoring what you said here, but including it there. No one.
I've already had my 3 choices.
All right. Okay, that's interesting. And in terms of going back, so quite a lot of you, over half of you, teach. How many of you think, which of these have the most impact, would you say? Internet.
And then
Moodle. Yeah. In terms of within a physical learning environment, not just used in class. Yeah, that's interesting because that's something that came out, which I was a bit surprised about, was how much it's used in actual kind of physical learning, teaching situations. Okay, great. That's very useful. From what the students said in my data was that PowerPoint was right at the top there, so you're right, or you agree with them.
Sorry, may I ask a question? Yeah. When they said it was the most used, did that mean the one of which they made the most use, or the one which they perceived lecturers used most?
The one which they received their teaching from, if you like. So not their use of it, but in terms of what they experienced in the physical environment. And also the whiteboard, followed by Moodle, which is similar, but I think this figure, the 17 for the internet, was perhaps a bit confused because I didn't label that very clearly. In terms of technologies which they said had the most impact, they thought that PowerPoint, whiteboard, followed by Moodle, and clickers, which I thought was interesting because it doesn't sound like clickers are used an awful lot. I'm sure it'll be possible to find statistics on that, but I suppose if you ask somebody how much impact something has relative to other things, it's not necessarily how much it's used, it's something else. So does most impact mean most used?
Would students recognise that as the voting system, the PLS?
Yeah, I called it clickers.
Oh,
So yes, yeah. Yeah. I'd like a few more of your opinions, if that's okay. And you're able to use, I think, did everyone say, everyone's got something that can communicate by text, Twitter, or internet, is that correct? Or if you're willing to use them, is anyone not? Well, you can ask someone to do it for you. I'd like you, in groups of 3, or thereabouts, whoever you're sitting near enough to have a very quick discussion with, to complete the following statement and submit one version in 3 minutes. Simple, yeah? Not asking too much. And I'd like you to complete this sentence. So, the use of technology in physical learning environments, for those who perhaps weren't here at the beginning, classrooms, lecture halls, whatever you'd like to call them, impacts on teaching and learning by, can you provide the rest of those words? Yeah, so I'm not going to organise you into groups of 3 or approximately. If you could do it with someone else or a couple of other people, that'd be great. And I'd like you to use this. So basically, you can text this number and your message to this phone number. So this number has to appear in the text. You send it to that number with your message. Or you can tweet at poll with that number and your message. Or you can go online and send it. Okay? But just one of the 3 of you is going to do it. You're all going to agree on it. 3 minutes. Am I asking too much? I don't think so. Okay? So you've got 3 minutes. Is that clear?
That tweet is addressed.
Do you need a couple more seconds, or are you? Oh, no. One more second. 30, 10. 10's my right. Well, you carry on doing that, and I'll start talking. Can anyone read this? I was going to say, yeah, I need an eye test. So I'm kind of. It's all very interesting, but very small. So I'll read them out. I think they're in anti-chronological order. So I'll start at the bottom. So involving students to make learning more interactive, encouraging lecturers to think differently and refresh their teaching, and to use a wider range of resources, making the learning experience multi-sensory, appealing to different learning styles by offering a variety of teaching and learning methods, adding variety, increasing fun element, makes students think rather than listen and keeps them awake and addresses different learning styles and gives teachers a bit of a break. Correct. Well done. Yeah, no. which is all very interesting, and I'd say ties in very well with what I've been hearing from students and lecturers, is that it adds something. I think, has anyone, if you want to take a picture of this or whatever later, I'll put it back up. But some of the themes that came from the data, which tie, as I say, very closely with what you've just seen there, that technology on the whole is perceived as being very positive by both students and teachers. There's a quote down here on the left that the clickers engage students to participate and thus learn. The whiteboard explains the concepts, the academic describes, PowerPoint visualises the material taught. So this is someone who obviously kind of really sees how it all fits into place. It can enable discussion, the PRSs, the video case studies, also giving the opportunity to give instant feedback and a variety to the learning experience. And I think you could find just about all of the words there in the answers that you provided, the suggestions you provided. But it wasn't all roses. There were a few carnations. It can also cause delays when things don't work well and be distractive, and distractive be a distraction. So, for example, students using laptops in lecture halls. There are a few examples of people saying this was really useful because we don't get physical hard copy of the lecture notes. We can follow the notes on Moodle on our laptops. But then someone gets distracted and starts doing something else with their laptop, and it kind of turns into a different activity. They start buying things from eBay rather than following the notes. We've all been there.
Just ask though, is that something, did you ask the students that? Because I mean, the generations coming up now, they will do things, they'll have a laptop and a mobile phone in the house, they'll be tweeting, typing and watching telly and probably trying to do their homework, because I'm thinking about my nieces at school. But I see them doing that at time, and that's the next lot of undergraduates coming up, and I'm just wondering how people teaching feel about the fact they might be sitting in a classroom teaching with someone just doing all those activities, and whether that's a question you ask the lecturers that you polled in your poll.
I'll ask what do you think, those you teach? Do you regard that as a distraction?
I must admit, personally, I don't like it, because I feel that I'm there to teach and I want them to listen to me. And if they're not going to listen, they're not going to learn. And if they're not going to learn, they're not going to pass the assessments. And then if they don't pass them, they're going to complain. I mean, they generally do. But so there is a bit of me that because I always give 100% attention to something, I actually can't relate to that sort of doing 6 things at once, way of living. However, perhaps I'm being a bit Neanderthal, and that is the way that they are. So that's a very personal view, but it does partly depend on my mood, and sometimes I'll think, well, okay, if they want to, I mean, it's their money that they're investing in the courses, and if they want to sit there and, do Facebook, then I can't stop them. But I do find it a bit irritating. To be brutally honest.
I think it's quite clear when a student is using technology for beneficial reasons within a classroom and when they're not. And so when it's clear that they're using it to enhance their learning environment, then it's fine. But if they're on Facebook again, then that is an issue.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has heard a student kind of offer a more recent resource than the one that you're showing them. So actually, this came out this morning.
That's the context. Once I just decided to try to be a little bit more understanding about it, I actually realised that they would be on their mobile phones. In fact, and I would say something about a date of something had happened, and I'd say, I'm not quite sure what it was, early 70s or something like that. And then, sure enough, literally within about there'd be like a competition to see who's 1973, and then I realised that actually there's a very positive side to this as well.
So, yeah, to answer, I can't remember whose question, whether, I think it depends, doesn't it? It depends what they're doing, and it depends on the teacher. So if they're using them for things that are adding to what they're learning at that particular moment, great. But if they're not, they're doing something completely different. And some students said that they weren't talking about being a distraction for them necessarily, their use of it, but someone else is distracting them by not following the lecture notes and looking at something else on their laptop which they could see. So yeah, it's more complicated than it might initially feel, I think. In different groups of 3, so perhaps if you could turn the other way, I wonder if you could complete the following sentence. Technology in teaching and learning is not standalone. I provide a piece of paper. I'd like you to make a high quality paper aeroplane. That's it. Okay. And land it on the pod table with your answer. Okay? In groups of 3? You managed the other thing in 3 minutes, well, more or less. Could you? Okay, I'll catch it. Oh, that's that should get a prize. Right, I'll just share these with you. Just teaching, is that it? Or is this? Technology in teaching and learning is not standalone. It supports teaching and is increasingly integrated into the main objectives of teaching. Okay? is part of the blended learning environment, is in addition to the repertoire, requires training, relevance and mutual gains, is an integral part of an overall package that facilitates constructive alignment. Let's go. You don't have to say it was, but I think that's pretty good.
Crikey. Or an arrow.
Marvellous. It sometimes doesn't work. Enhances, extends and enables, 3 E's. It's complementary and enhances the student experience. This turns into a word cloud, doesn't it? It really happens. This will be reused. It won't just be recycled, it'll be reused, I promise you, in case you're wondering. It's an indispensable component of a successful learning environment. Okay. Which is all it's all very interesting. Thank you very much. That's really, yeah. I'm getting so much out of this session. Yeah, if you're getting anywhere. Thank you. And it does tie into other things that both students and lecturers were saying. And on the whole, most people seem to be saying similar things, whether they're students, lecturers, etc. That yes, on the whole, it's very positive. But there are a few buts. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes lecturers aren't aware of it. Going back to the point that was made earlier about students being slightly more technology savvy than most of us, that I think it's something that needs to be thought about on a variety of different levels. Students, I at the end of the online survey, I kind of thought I'd ask them which of these, to rank these 4 factors in their learning experience. So the classroom, technology, teacher, time of the class, in terms of which they thought was most important, or 1 to 4 kind of thing. And I don't want you to tell me what you think. Well, I kind of do, but I'm not going to ask you. I actually want you to tell me what you think they think. Okay, so how do you think they rank this? Are you happy to do a bit more texting? Was that painless? So different numbers, different image. This is on the boat from Formentera to Ibiza on Saturday. Not really relevant, but there you go. Can you see those codes at the top there? No. How many of you are texting? A couple of you. It's the same phone number, same 020 322 5822 number. Then you put that code to mean classroom, technology, teacher, time of the class. And the tweet one was the same idea. And did anyone use the online, the HT? Yeah. Okay. It's the same plus the code.
Are we just voting for what we think was their number 1?
What you think?
We thought was their top choice.
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes. I think there's a clear winner. And a clear second place. I'll come back to this. Unfortunately, I can't show them both at the same time. It's beyond me. They ranked them in that order. And I didn't give you the chance to put them in first, second, third, fourth. Yeah, it's not my fault. But yeah, the teacher and the comments were, if somebody's a good teacher, they're a good teacher, whatever they do, whatever they use. And the time of the class was second. Is that a surprise to any of you?
No.
It's not. It was a slight surprise to me. Technology, yeah, great. And the classroom, they didn't think it was important, but it was definitely in fourth place. So, some of the comments included, well, this is, sorry, from the data from the observation and lecturers, a snapshot of it, that from what I saw, there was a right, if you choose a selection of classes in City at random and go and see an hour of them, clearly there's going to be a wide range from people who used all sorts of different, managed to fit bits of everything or lots of different things to one else, to one session where it was completely student-teacher interaction with no technology whatsoever. But within those, there were also lots of different interactions, and pair work, group work, as you might expect, and the type of different physical learning environments there are. There's a difference in awareness of teaching. There were teachers who, when I mentioned clickers, personal, yeah, did it again, personal response. That's my dyslexia. They said, oh, I've seen it on TV, but not anywhere else. So weren't aware that it was an option, kind of thing. And one of the comments, which kind of summed up most people's, was that I'm very pro-technology when there's a justifiable need. It needs to fill something we can't do face-to-face, or to provide a fun element. So yeah, it's great, but it's not the single most important thing. Students, some suggestions they come up with are perhaps better training for some staff and better maintenance for equipment. There were quite a few mentions of lectures being delayed because the bulb needs cleaning. Clean your bulbs. And obviously when you're doing observations, you kind of hope that things will happen. Hope that, that anything might happen, but not necessarily something bad. But one of the observations I did require 2 people from AV, a drill, and an unplanned break, which is just kind of just what you dream of, isn't it, if you're observing something. It's never happened before, which kind of made it even better. Others talking about in terms of technology they'd like to see used, so talk about e-readers and having files in different formats. They want to be able to use their Kindles and for everything. And recording lectures and putting them online, which they thought was a good idea and perhaps is already happening. Interactive whiteboards. I don't know if those of you who teach, how many of you have ever used an interactive whiteboard? Which one of you?
In primary school,
Okay. Yeah. I don't actually know how many there are at City. Are there any?
There are some.
Yeah.
There were some.
There were some. Okay.
Yeah, there are. Not many.
They're now on eBay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Desperate financial times.
Okay.
You've got just under 10 minutes.
Okay, great, which is perfect. A quick recap. Well, I thought I'd just kind of go across the world again. Basically, in terms of conclusions, my conclusions before getting your information was that there's a lot of interesting teaching happening. If you're ever able to go and sit in someone's class, you probably should ask them first. It's really interesting to see what people do, especially in a range of different schools and activities. I think technology is adding value, apologies for the use of that expression, and giving breadth and depth to learning. Students value it when it's used well, dislike it when it gets in the way. They kind of want it on their terms, which is probably not a surprise to them or us, but they're juggling 2 or 3 devices while walking down the road listening to something on Spotify. They can cope. I don't think you're going to scare City students with technology, which is what I just said there. They might be ahead. Perhaps we need to catch up and keep up. Sometimes technology breaks and requires an AV operative with a drill. Has this ever happened to you? Have you? Yeah. Oh, drill? Drill was good. Drill, I've not seen what. Yeah. Taking it to bits. Yeah. And do you have any questions? I've kind of flown through quite a few things. Any questions? I've got 5 minutes. So, yes.
What are you planning to do with the results of your research? How are you going to
use it to help us to enhance our teaching?
I've said I'd write a report of some sort. As part of the secondment, that's kind of part of the deal. I'm going to do this. But basically, I mean, I think I've tried to make it clear. I'm not claiming that this is a completely comprehensive study of what's happening. It's a snapshot. It's been very interesting, but I would have liked it. I really wanted to be able to do bits from the whole of the universe, and there are so many factors that make that difficult at times going involved. But yeah, anything that I think is of use, I'll be happy to share. So there'll be a report, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
But will you consider publishing it in the Learning and City journal?
I think Pam Parker's going to try and twist my arm to do something similar. So that might be a yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I get the impression that anyone attending this workshop that perhaps has come from FE or secondary school environment will be going, what, they don't have interactive whiteboards? I mean, if you go into any primary school these days, there's at least an interactive whiteboard in the corner of every classroom, let alone computers and iPads. And why do you think HE seems to be a little bit behind the curve when it comes to sort of integrating technology into its teaching? I know that's a massive question, but if you
I can ask you that.
Do you get a sense of that in your research that is true, that there is a lag?
I think so, but to be honest, I'm familiar with primary schools as a parent of child who goes to primary school, but I don't know I don't know the reason. I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think most people would expect it would be the other way around.
Yeah, but it hasn't been for a long time, I think.
So.
I was going to say money, but I don't think it is money, because universities have had a lot of money for this as well. I think it's probably more, I think in pre-university education there's been more requirement to use technology. But you wouldn't get away with it in a school, I think, to not use a whiteboard.
But how can we get away with it in HE?
Because we're less monitored. QAA is not Ofsted. Discuss.
It's the same thing for teaching group sizes. It kind of goes the opposite way to the way you would think it would go. At primary school, you've got very small groups, and at HE, you're teaching like 150 people. That's bonkers. But I just wondered whether your research is looking at the bigger context of all of that.
The short answer is it would be no, but I mean, obviously it's very interesting, and someone must have the answer to this. I don't, I'm afraid. Okay.
Just to point, I used to be a governor of a primary school, actually, and I remember when they got interactive whiteboards, and it was I'm sure it was at least about 8 years ago. It was a big surprise, wow, we're going to get them for every classroom, but then it was only 3 classrooms per year group, so that's 12 classrooms that they had to equip with.
Right.
Whereas if you're going to do it across the university,
Yes.
do you do it in one school and then another and another and another, or then the one that's the schools that the last one will maybe be complaining that they're last in the list, or do you try and do it across everybody all at once? Just imagine if every single teaching room in the city had to have a whiteboard, an electronic whiteboard, all at the same time.
I wonder proportionally though, do we have more classrooms, the ratios in terms of numbers of students to, probably our ratios are probably higher, aren't they? Schools. I don't know actually infrastructure wise. I think it's the priority of investment. And that I think with the kind of monitoring systems that teachers have, the requirement to engage with technology is bigger than I think that we require academics to. Whether that will change over time if more academics are mandated and expected to have teaching qualifications, and it will divide. And I think the pressure from students is going to be massive if they're being used to this technology from the age of 2, 3.
Yeah.
But I think the need is completely different, isn't it, in higher education? Higher education groups are more homogeneous because you're not trying to teach people of every single ability. They generally want to be there, at least in principle, rather than that's what you hope. Rather than having to struggling to teach a lot of people who don't necessarily want to be there. You will rely on a lot of whatever technological tricks or gimmicks you can use to sort of to get it to work. But kind of at this sort of higher level, you hope people are interested in the material to a degree, and kind of that can kind of come through rather than having to sort of rely on the technology. And I think there's also the issue that academics aren't teachers. Academics are sort of researchers who, and I think we have to sort of recognise that academics, certainly at many institutions, are primarily researchers who engage with teaching, but it's not their sort of it's not the only thing that they do, and so the extra load on sort of acquiring new technologies and that sort of thing is going to be harder. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, but it's a reality, I think.
There's so many things, and I'm going to take over. But my question back would be: do you think we can still maintain that position with students paying more and more for their education? I mean, I know that's kind of reducing it to the money side of things, but I think that if students are coming with higher expectations, or this just not at higher expectations, but this is the expectation that they engage with technology, not just in a kind of fun sense, but as a core sense of their engaging with learning, and they have done ever since they were very, very young, to say that we're not primarily necessarily teachers when they're also paying more, I don't think it's going to hold. Is that going to hold over the next?
Well, I think yes,
years?
because I think the only way in which we can, kind of differentiate ourselves is by saying, look, this is what we do. Come with us and see what we're researching every day, what we're really excited about. And we will take you through there to places where only a handful of people know about. And that's what we need to be selling, rather than we're going to do exactly the same as you had at primary, secondary school, through slick, high quality teaching of facts and, sort of ideas second, third hand, rather than sort of from the horse's mouth, which I just don't think has, it's not something you can do at this sort of level. You've got to start doing things differently at higher education, otherwise people are going to think, well, I could watch a video online about this, or there's no point in my being here and paying a lot of money.
It's much more independent learning.
Yeah, these are adults, ostensibly.
Can I just put a quick plug?
Very quick.
For if you want to find out about some of the new technology that we are bringing in here, come along at lunchtime. There's 2 stands. There's the LDC are running one, looking at the new things around Moodle and video that we're bringing in, and Joe Pentecost from Information Services is going to be talking about, has got a stand about lecture capture, which is coming in all of our large learning spaces, and the Office 365 suite, which has got online conferencing and all sorts of things. So come and have a look at lunchtime. We are making advancements.
I know that we're out of time, and I'd like to just thank Peter for a really engaging and fun session, and also for all your input and your questions afterwards. I think we could carry on all day. Please, I'm just going to pass around these, so please fill in one of these evaluation forms. Peter was great, it's like X Factor, isn't it? I think Peter was great on one of these, and then he may be up for a prize later on, but thank you very much.